Shalom Lukulam. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Begin Center Zoom. My name is Paul Gross. I'm a senior fellow at the Menachem Begin Heritage Center. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to another of our regular Zoom discussions, lectures. This is the sixth and final lecture that we will be having in this series, in our collaboration with the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. It's going to be a great end to that series. I think you'll find. Before I introduce our guest, I'll just explain briefly that after my introduction, he's going to take the floor, so to speak, and give his presentation, his lecture, and then the floor is going to be there for you to put your questions to him. You can write those questions in the chat, using the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So as he's speaking, as questions come to you, you can put those in the chat, and I will select some of those to put to him when he's finished his presentation. Okay, so as those of you who've been part of this series know, this series was initially planned several months ago. Obviously, after the events of October 7th, it took on both I would say an added urgency to address security questions facing Israel, obviously, but also the focus understandably shifted somewhat. So we will be hearing, I think, a great deal from our guest today about the current situation, as well as wider issues in the Middle East and beyond. So it is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome General Yaakov Amidror, who was a national security advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu and chairman of the National Security Council for 2.5 years between 2011 and 2013. He served for 36 years in senior IDF posts, including commander of the military colleges, which includes the National Defense College, the Staff and Command College, and the Tactical Command Academy. He was military secretary to Israel's Minister of Defense. He was director of the Intelligence Analysis Division in Military Intelligence and Chief Intelligence Officer of the Northern Command. He's also the author of 3 books on intelligence and military strategy, most recently Winning Counterinsurgency War, the Israeli Experience. So as you can tell, it is a glowing CV and extremely fitting and appropriate to deal with the questions that many of you will have about the current situation and where we go from here. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, General Yaakov Amidror. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. For me to be in a Zoom organized by the Begin Center is a great honor. I knew Mr. Begin when I was young. Personally, my family used to go to his apartment in Tel Aviv. It was in a basement, kind of a basement. My mother served as the member of the Irgun, of the Etzel, and was in a prison for a few years, in and out. So it's a great honor for me. Anyhow, the war itself. A few words about the situation in the war, and then I try to connect it to the broader situation around the Middle East. We are now in going into the next phase in Gaza. The IDF declared that they gained control on the ground in the north part of Gaza, where half of the population, most of them left the area, but it was the area in which half of the population was lived. And I'm emphasized on the ground because parallel to the efforts to gain the control on the ground, and afterwards, the efforts will be moved, most of them underground, because the tunnels, the headquarters, the factories of preparing the weapon systems, and so on and so forth, almost everything is under the ground. And this is a kind of a challenge that no one has any experience how to deal with. And the IDF learned through the operation a lot about the needs and how to do it, and still we don't have a good answer to the challenge of the underground system which was built by Hamas. But in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, it's clear we have control on the ground. We have to clean it, what the Americans call mopping up. It's a process. In the south and in the center, we are still in the process of gaining the control. It will take a few weeks at least, and only then we will move to the next stage. But because of the different terrain and different system that we are facing, the different kind of urban area, which is not so urban as in Gaza city itself, the methods are different. But still, in the center and in the south, we are in the process of gaining the control, and only afterwards we will move to the mopping up process in the south and the center as well. There is a special issue relating to Rafah, which is close to the Egyptian border, and we will have to find with the Egyptians ways to deal with it, because it's crucial to cut the connection between the Egyptian side and the Gaza Strip. Here it's a combination of political issues and military. How long it will take? Probably a year. Nothing is going to be easy. There is no easy or a short solution. It will take a year to make the process, to clean it, and to find all the underground centers which used by the Hamas, to find a way how to destroy it and to take out all the military capabilities of Hamas on the ground and under the ground. The mopping up, as I said, will take probably a year. 2024 will be dedicated to this stage. I hope that it will be finished in 1 year. And when we speak about the day later, we have to take into consideration that the day later is very far. It's not tomorrow. The fact that the north part of Gaza is under military control on the ground, allowing the IDF to move forces out of Gaza. Still, there are many forces in the south and in the center, but part of the forces which had been in Gaza moved to the north, and it is immediately we ask ourselves, okay, what next? The main question about next is what will happen in the north. In the north, at the beginning, there were some views that Nasrallah might join the war. The decision of Nasrallah was not to do it. The decision of the government of Israel in the fourth day of the war was the same, not to open a second front. But since then, we are fighting, exchanging fire with the Hezbollah around the border. I'm saying around the border, close to the border. In some occasions, it is far from the border, like the bombing of the Mount Meron radar system by Hezbollah a few days ago, 2 days ago. But basically, it's kind of a play that both sides playing, knowing that the other side doesn't want a war, and both sides very cautious not to deteriorate the system by having a huge success somewhere, which will push the other side to react. There are some actions which are not within the rules. For example, the annihilation of Arouri in Beirut by someone, and Hezbollah might think that the annihilation of the very high commander in the special forces of Hezbollah today is also kind of violating the rules, in spite of the fact that he was killed within the limitations of the geography of the exchange of fire in the past. So let's wait to their reaction. But the main question will be on the day after. How Israel allows or bring back the population of the north when Hezbollah is still very strong, when the Radwan forces are still there, and there is no any agreement that Hezbollah is ready to agree to. And the ability of Hezbollah to launch missiles into Israel is huge. They have 10 times more missiles than if not more, than Hamas. So the question of the day after, the most problematic question, is not about Gaza, with all due respect. It is about Lebanon. What Israel's decision will be about Lebanon, and the pressure of the population in the north is very clear. We want security, and without security, we don't come back. So Israel is not going to lose the north, and the decision what should be done, it's the big question. I want to mention two other fronts, but I'll speak then about the situation around it. One is the West Bank, Judah, and Samaria, in which during the war, Israel forces, mainly, by the way, reserve forces, almost all of them, succeeded to arrest almost 3,000 people, more than 2,500, and kill probably very close to 300. If you look at the numbers, it's almost 3,000 people in 90 days. It means that every day, at least 20 people or more were either killed or arrested by the IDF averagely every day, every night. There were 3 big operations to clean the refugee camp of Jenin, the refugee camp of Nablus, and the refugee camp of Tulkarem. And basically, I think the ability of the terrorist organization in the West Bank to implement terror actions was very much reduced by these operations. They still can. They can shoot, and they can use cars, and they can do whatever they can, but the ability was probably reduced to a very low level. And there is another front. These are the Houthis in Yemen. They are conducting 2 operations against Israel. One is to close the Bab el-Mandeb and the entrance to the Red Sea to any ship which is part of the line leading to either Ashdod or Haifa. And basically, they succeeded to stop this line of communication for Israel. And the other action that they did, and they still doing, is to launch missiles, long-range missiles, drones, cruise missiles, and so on into Eilat. By the way, the range to Yemen is more than the range from Israel to Tehran. Tehran is around 1,500 kilometers, and to Yemen it's more than 2,100 kilometers. So it's 50% more than to Tehran. About the first threat, the Americans build an international force to protect the line of the maritime communication. It's not about Israel. By the way, Egypt, Jordan, and Sudan are suffering from this operation more than Israel, much more than Israel, because our dependence on the export from the West and from the East and to the East is less important to our economy. It is more about export than import. And the launching of the missiles and the drones and the cruise missiles made something that no one expected. There is kind of a network of alliance between Saudi Arabia, the United States of America and Israel under the umbrella of the Central Command, the American Central Command, in which we are cooperating by sharing information, radar information, and another information that relevant to those attacks of the Houthis. And all the three countries are intercepting what is launched by the Houthis. The Saudis intercepted at least twice long-range missile in its way to Israel, and the Americans did 80% of the job. And the other 20%, which was done by the Israeli Air Force. It's the first time in the history of Israel that we use all our anti-missile systems with a huge success. If you test it if you give the mark from the ability to intercept. It is the Iron Dome, which is the backbone of the whole system. The David Sling, which is a longer missile and faster, which was used whenever there was a problem with the Iron Dome. It's the Arrow 2, which did it twice, the Arrow 3, which made it once, and even the Patriot succeeded to intercept a drone coming from the east, from Jordan. So the whole system worked very well, and we have many lessons of the combination of all the systems, kind of system of systems. And if you want, it's a good example for the world and for those who are looking for solutions for anti-missile systems. The war itself, if I can sum it up, and to go to kind of explaining what the war means. I think there are three levels of war here, and all will be determined in the allies of in the street of Gaza. The first level is about the security of the Israelis living around Gaza and in Israel. To change the situation in which every 3 years someone in Gaza can decide that Israel is going to shelters. To change dramatically the situation in which people around Gaza cannot live peacefully because someone every week can decide to launch rockets into Sderot or one of the settlements. It's about the security of the people in West Negev, around Gaza Strip, and about the security of citizens in Israel. And after the 7th of October, it's very clear that the situation was very fragile, and we have to build a different system in which there is no any threat to those who are living very close to the border. The second level is not about people in West South Israel, and not about the security of the citizens of Israel. It is about the position of Israel as a state in the Middle East and in the world. We lost this position. The fantastic intelligence that everyone knew that we have, the one which can bring the archive of the nuclear program from Tehran, didn't work. Huge failure. The IDF, which was known as a very superb, with the real superiority in the Middle East, the whole system collapsed. And it took us 16 hours to rebuild the previous situation on the ground in the border. And we lost 1,200 people in few hours. A devastating disaster that didn't happen in the past. That shelters had been infiltrated by Hamas mob, killing, raping, putting in oven babies, and it was unbelievable kind of atrocities. A music festival, in music festival we lost almost 400 people, young people, celebrating music. the whole position of Israel in the Middle East was collapsed, or at least cracks. And in this operation, we have to bring Israel back to the same position that we had before the 7th of October. And the only way to achieve it is not just to complete the whole operation in clear victory, but it should be a very visual victory, that it will be well understood. When the sharks smell the blood and they come, they have to see the remnants of Hamas, not more than that. They have to understand that if someone is doing such an operation against Israel, Israel annihilated, not reacting, not destroying, eliminating. And we never use elimination in our orders to the army. Here, the order is clear: eliminate the military capability of Hamas. This is the second level. The position of the state of Israel will be determined by the results of the war. And the third one is the international situation. President Biden understood that it is not just about Israel, it's about the axis of America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf countries versus the axis of Russia, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Chinese are looking from the balcony to see what will be the result. People in Ukraine, in North Korea, in Taiwan, looking at the situation, saying, okay, what will happen? Where is the United States of America mighty capabilities? And this is why the carriers came, not because of the war against Hamas and even not against Hezbollah. It's about the international community situation and the friction between two axes. And the president understood it. And the Americans immediately reacted, not only because the security of Israel. It is about the position of the United States of America and its allies around the world. So it's a three-level war, which will determine at the end in the streets of Gaza Strip. But because it is so connected to the international situation and two group of alliances, the question about Hezbollah is one in which the Americans have an interest. America doesn't want to broaden the war. The Houthis is a big question, is a big challenge. And America is not doing what America can do against the Houthis. Why? They don't want to broaden the war. But if Israel declare war on Hezbollah, that will be a devastating war. Hezbollah has 10 times more missiles than Hamas. Hezbollah is much bigger. Hezbollah has, if Hamas has, I don't know, few anti-tank missiles, Hezbollah has thousands. It's another kind of a war for Israel and for Lebanon. It will be a devastating one. Many missiles will reach cities in Israel. With these numbers, no question. Think about the statistic. Iron Dome intercepting 90% of all the missiles which had been launched by Hamas into populated areas in Israel. If it's not a populated area, we don't intercept it. But 10% from, I don't know, half of what they have, 50,000. It's 5,000 missiles which will hit targets in Israel, including infrastructure. They have precise missiles which Hamas doesn't have. They have huge warheads which Hamas doesn't have to very close range. And so on and so forth, that it will be another war. I'm not saying that we should not go to such a war, maybe we will not have any other option. Because if you want to population of the North to come back, we have to do it. And if the Americans do not succeed to convince Lebanon, to convince Hezbollah to push its forces to the north, maybe we don't have any other alternative. But we have to take into account that that is going to be a devastating war. And it's better to do it after the failure of the Americans, because that might gain us a little bit of legitimacy when the Americans do not want it. And they really don't want it. And their messenger, Mr. Hochstein, is doing its best to convince Lebanon, because the Americans understand that it might be a situation in which we don't have an alternative. So if you look at it from the international point of view, it is not just about Gaza. It's about the whole broadened Middle East and who will be the forces that at the end of the war will gain the upper hand and will be easier for them to take the Middle East to their direction. Are we going to a situation in which Iran is making the decisions in the Middle East, or we are broadening the Abraham Accord and building new bridges in the Middle East between Israel and Arab countries? This is the main question in here. And the price up till now is huge, no question. It's a war which was imposed on us by the atrocities and by the invading of Israel by Hamas. But in the present situation, it's not just about revenge and not just about bringing back the hostages, which are both very important issues. It's about how the Middle East will be handled and looks like in the future. And this is why this war is more important than just the security of the people near Gaza or even in Ra'anana. It is about the position of Israel and about the new Middle East. Will we have a new Middle East, or we will go back retreating to the old Middle East, in which terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah are dictating to countries what should happen, or it will be a Middle East in which countries can cooperate within the limitation of disagreement about some issues like the Palestinian issue. So that is my description of the situation. If you have a question, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, well, firstly, thank you so much for that. That was a really enlightening overview and really comprehensive, and I think probably answered a lot of questions that many people had already. The Middle East that you are pointing to, the ideal situation that you're pointing to, I think it seems, from what I understand, is one where, firstly, where Israel has restored its deterrence, its deterrence ability, and its position as effectively as the military superpower of the region, but also one where there is a sort of renewed or a new focused alliance in some way between Israel and the Gulf states and Saudis, obviously with the United States as well, against the Iranian axis. There were a few questions there's a lot of questions that people asked, and I had some questions myself, but I'm going to ask a question which incorporates some of the questions that we've had. You spoke a lot about Lebanon and the North for obvious reasons. Do you think that the decision so far by Nasrallah not to embark on a full-scale attack do you think it's because the Iranians want Hezbollah effectively to sort of stay intact for some future situation down the road where maybe, I don't know, Israel attacks the Iranian nuclear facilities, and then they'll want Lebanon, then they'll want Hezbollah to attack? Because obviously, if Hezbollah do attack now in the kind of enormous attack and huge war that you're talking about, then the response from Israel is going to be devastating. And it could be the end of Hezbollah. So do you think that there's an Iranian consideration in there?
I think that this is the main consideration of the Iranians. I think that Nasrallah has another consideration. Lebanon is in a very bad situation today. Before the war, there was more hours of electricity in Gaza than in Beirut. The economy is collapsing, and a lot of anger is going against Hezbollah. So I think that Nasrallah has another consideration when he sees the rebels of the situation in Gaza. And he thinks to himself, do I want it happening in Nabatea, Bin Jbel, or South Beirut? So it's not only the strategic consideration of the Iranians, which need Hezbollah to deter Israel relating to the Israeli strategy to try to prevent Iran from having nuclear capability. From his point of view, from Nasrallah's point of view, is also about the situation of the Shiites sect in Lebanon. He doesn't want to be blamed for destroying Lebanon, and he understands that this is the situation. We are not speaking about numbers, but I can tell you that the number of targets that the IDF has in his list as preset before the war, the number in Lebanon is 100 times more than in Gaza. So think about what does it mean to Lebanon? I think it is both. It's the Iranian strategic needs and the Nasrallah cautiousness. Right.
So you mentioned the efforts by the American envoy Amos Hochstein to try and broker some kind of diplomatic solution to this, to prevent the possibility or preempt the possibility, I should say, of a war. Do you see? Because it seems to me that the Lebanese government would obviously want that to be the case, right? Because they don't want the kind of catastrophic war that we're talking about. But how much sway does the Lebanese government have over Hezbollah ultimately?
They don't have. The only leverage that the Americans have is if they succeed to convince Hezbollah through the Lebanese that the alternative to an agreement is a big war in which America will help Israel, and this combination will be devastating for Hezbollah. How to do it? It can be done. It's a good question that I don't have an answer to. It's a diplomatic efforts which are done now by the Americans and the French, and I think that the only leverage is that. Will they use it or not? Do they ready to commit themselves? A good question that I don't have an answer to.
Okay. I think I will probably return to Lebanon, but let me switch now to Hamas and Gaza. Or there were a few questions actually about the day after, which, as you said at the beginning, is probably quite a long way down the road, maybe a year, as you said. What is your view on the various options being discussed or proposed for who's going to be responsible for Gaza? Because obviously we know that outside of Israel, and many people talk about the Palestinian Authority, much fewer inside Israel, but certainly that's been talked about outside Israel. The defense minister was talking about working with some sort of local Palestinians inside Gaza, local clan leaders or that kind of thing, and maybe with some constellation of Arab states involved as well. with Israeli security control. I'm not sure how that would work, but what's your view of that? Is there a best scenario here or a least bad scenario?
There is no good scenario.
Right.
And Israel should, first of all, make clear what's the Israeli interest in the day after in Gaza. And we have three interests, three goals. One is the negative one. Who will not control Gaza? And that should be very clear. Hamas or someone like Hamas or Islamic Jihad or someone like Islamic Jihad. No terror organization will control Gaza. This is the first one. The second one, Israel will keep the freedom of action in Gaza. From this point of view, Gaza is like Jenin. We don't have any soldier today in Jenin. But if we have tomorrow information about cell of Hamas in Jenin, we know how to get into Jenin. Will it will be done by F-16 or by drones or by a brigade which is going into Gaza? That will be our decision. But Israel should keep the freedom to act in Gaza. The third interest that we have, that we should not make the same mistake that we did before the 6th of October, and the fence should be secured by a buffer zone. What is the depth of the buffer zone? Will it be 2 miles or 1 kilometer? I don't know. But mines are all what is needed to stop everyone from reaching the fence. Is very much needed militarily. It should not be Israeli sovereignty. It's a technical military need to secure the fence from the Gaza side. What are the alternatives for who will control Gaza? Taking into account that this is the Israeli, the four Israeli, the three Israeli rules or interests that should be secured. The first alternative is Israel control, like before the Oslo Agreement. With settlement, without settlement, the issue of settlement is a political one, but military-wise, Israel should control the Gaza Strip. Otherwise, we are giving freedom to organizations like Hamas to grow again. First alternative. Of course, it's the negative side versus the military one, which is positive. The negative one is Israel will have to be responsible for 2 million Palestinians in a broken area. Financially, Israel cannot take it upon itself. Israel will have responsible for education, water, gas, whatever, electricity, police. This is the one alternative. The second alternative is the Palestinian Authority. Legally, it's part of the Palestinian Authority. In the elections in 2006, the Fatah lost, but they can come back. There are many officials which are getting money from the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. I think it is 30,000 people, but I'm not sure about the number. They didn't have any practical job to do under Hamas, but they kept the system. The Palestinian Authority kept the system alive. The problem is that the Palestinian Authority is an inefficient system, corrupted from all over. They don't succeed to control Jenin and Nablus, so they will control Gaza. No way. The Americans are speaking about reforming it. Good idea, but how long it will take? So it's an option, but it's an option with many problems, and politically, it's not the one which the government in Israel prefer. The third option is what was represented by Minister Gallant, is kind of a local cleanse with the help of Israel and Egypt and I don't know who else, which will control the Gaza Strip. It's an option, cleanse is good everywhere, but I don't think that there is inside Gaza today strong cleanse that can deal with the threat of the remnants of Hamas and others. And there will not be, and I'm not sure that they are ready to take the risk of fighting for something which is offered by Israel and supported by Israel, for Palestinians to cooperate with Israel when it is coming to their own system. It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
But it's the third alternative. The fourth alternative is something which might work with the last alternative that I just mentioned, is kind of international organization which will be organized for that purpose, money from the Gulf, responsibility from other countries, advisors from the Americans, whatever. America has a huge experience in building security forces, with not with a great success in Afghanistan, but at least they have the knowledge. And probably the Brits have their own experience with that. So that might be a standalone solution or combination with the previous one, with the clans on the ground. The fourth, and I'm really afraid that this is the most realistic one, is no solution. It will be a chaotic system, vacuum to which bad forces will enter. No one will take care for the life of the population, of the people in Gaza, because nobody will be ready to take responsibility, and money will not come to help, and Israel will have to deal with a chaotic situation on the other side of the border. It's not an easy situation. You don't have an address, but it's probably the most realistic solution. Not because I like it, I dislike it. I think it's a huge failure of the world to build something for the people of Gaza. But we have to remember, our commitment to the people of Gaza was ended in the 7th of October. We don't have any commitment, not to their food, not to their water. They want it from Egypt. The minute that we are pulling our forces out and we are coming back only to destroy attempts to build military capabilities against Israel, the minute that we are pulling our forces out and building the perimeter around the border between us and the Gaza Strip, the responsibility is not ours. It's the Arab world. And at the end, the people of Gaza themselves. It's 2 million people, they are not babies, and they should do whatever is needed to build their own capacities to live.
Okay, that last point takes me to there were a couple of questions relating to the question of the population of Gaza, or the non-combatant population of Gaza. One was a question from Daniel, who said, could it have made sense for Israel to set up temporary camps for Gazan women and children on our side of the border to make the situation within Gaza less complex for the IDF, and to also demonstrate to the world our goodwill, etc.? Yes,
it's a very good idea. I'm not sure that the people of Gaza will cooperate, but it's a very good idea. By the way, the first to offer it was President Sisi from Egypt, which said, we are not ready to accept anyone from Gaza, but if you want to evacuate them, build something in your side. It's a good idea. It can be done with cooperation with the United Nations. That will be more than happy to help. And this is an Israeli decision, should be taken.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. The question here from Leon, he says, is it possible for Israel to become less dependent militarily and politically on the United States?
Politically, no, there is no any substitute to that. And if you want someone that will vote in the Security Council, he has to be member of the Security Council. I don't know anyone who is more friendly to Israel than the United States of America. So all this, the dreams about finding someone that will be a substitute to the United States of America in the international community is a dream which will not be fulfilled. About military dependence, it's a part of it is an economic decision. For example, munition. Munition is a waste of money. You produce and buy huge numbers, and when you have it, what you do? Storing it. And instead of having another big exercise to Golani Brigade, you have a lot of munition in the storage. So it's economic decision. Israel can make the decision, can buy much more, produce much more, but to understand, it's a huge budget. If you have the money, we can do it. If you don't have the money, you have to decide, prioritizing what you prefer. So the answer is theoretically relating to munition and so on. Yes, Israel can be much more independent. Economically, huge burden, huge. And this is only example to such decision, of course.
Yeah. So staying with this question.
The same is about the $3.8 billion that some Israelis saying, let's give it up and we will be less dependent on America. Yes, we will be less dependent on America, but you have to add to the IDF budget 4 times 3.8, it's 7.6, it's more than 14 billion shekel. If you're ready to give it tomorrow morning, yes, the IDF can say, instead of buying, I don't know what, F-35, we will buy something else, somewhere. By the way, there is one area in which we are doing it, submarines. The Americans do not produce not nuclear submarines, only nuclear submarines. And we don't want nuclear submarines. And by the way, we cannot afford ourselves. So we are buying the submarines in Europe, in Germany, with shekels. If you are ready to give the IDF another 14 billion shekel, the IDF can pick not to buy American-made something and to buy it in another place. I'm not sure that it is wise, by the way.
Okay. There's a couple of questions here from Jonathan, which also relate to Israeli decisions about the military development, shall we say. One is whether the IDF needs to be larger, in your view, both the standing army and the reserves. And
yes, and my answer is clear, yes, without going into numbers. I think that the IDF needs to be broader.
Okay, right, which might require changes in relation to like policy towards the Haredim, for example.
No, it's not. It's less about the regular army. It's more about the reserve system. And what we need, again, is very clear. The same way as I mentioned before, it's a question of money.
Okay. A question also here from Jonathan about what's the status of the anti-missile laser system under development?
Good question. We are very close to make it operational. We need more tests, and I believe that within a year we will have an operational system. But remember, the laser has some weak points. It cannot be substituted in many cases to Iron Dome. Weather, laser cannot work when you have clouds or mist or rain. And laser is not the right answer to big salvos. It's deal with one at a time.
Yeah.
So laser can be a part of the system, but not substitute to the system.
Right.
But it's very cheap.
Yeah, I was going to say, to clarify for our audience, we're talking about an advantage that, unlike Iron Dome and the other missile defense systems, where you're using an extremely expensive projectile to shoot down each rocket, the laser would be
yes,
many orders of magnitude cheaper than. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
But you need many of them because big salvos they cannot be dealt with laser. And for the today laser is for close range.
Right.
In the future, we hope that we succeed to develop a longer range laser. We are in process of doing it.
Okay. Good question here from Eric Pasterman, who right at the very beginning of your talk, you mentioned that the war is entering a new phase. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means? What's the difference between the phase we're going through and what the new phase will mean? And yes, the related question is, how does it impact our ability to free the hostages?
The hostages is one of the reasons to change the system. And if the first stage was huge armor, combination of armor and forces coming together with huge amount of fire, providing them the access to the center of Gaza, bombing every building in which there is resistance and so on. In the combination of strong infantry with armor forces, here we are speaking about lighter forces, which will go to specific places after gaining control on the ground, to specific places based on accurate intelligence. And we have now much better intelligence about the infrastructure of Hamas, based on the papers which had been confiscated by us in many headquarters, and intelligence which we are gathering from the investigations of Hamas terrorists. So now we have much better picture and more accurate one about the infrastructure that should be destroyed. These operations should lead to the leadership of Hamas at the end that should be eliminated. So it's a combination of more cautiousness because of the hostages, better and more precise intelligence, and very focusing on leadership and releasing the hostages.
Okay. There are a couple of very specific questions about tunnels. Obviously, the tunnel network was one of the big sort of things that the IDF has found in Gaza. But there are a couple of questions relating to the tunnels from Lebanon, and also tunnels that were recently found, or I don't know whether recently found or suspected, in Judea and Samaria in the West Bank. How should Israel address those issues?
First of all, no one found any tunnels in the West Bank. There were some piers leading from one side of the street to the other side of the street, inside refugee camps, but this is not tunnels.
Right.
And all the other tunnels in the West Bank are more rumors and rumors and I don't know, unproved news.
Okay.
I don't want to say fake news because it's unproved news.
Okay.
In Lebanon, I don't know. After we succeeded to eliminate the tunnels that they had, probably they have tunnels inside Lebanon, but because unlike Gaza, in which everything is very much connected, in Lebanon it's another story. It's a big area. The issue of tunnels will be a different one if there are tunnels, with the experience that we learn in Gaza, it will be much easier to deal with tunnels in Lebanon if we found them when we will move our ground forces in. If we will move our ground forces in. But the tunnels in Lebanon, if they exist, is a totally different story than in Gaza.
Okay.
Because of the density of Gaza. Gaza is less than 400 square kilometers,
right,
with 2 million people. So the most of the infrastructure is within the tunnels, which is not true about Hamas, about Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Even if they have tunnels. About the tunnels in Gaza, if I can quote one of the intelligence officers in Tel Aviv, who said that we hadn't been surprised by the amount, but by the quality. We knew that they have hundreds of kilometers of tunnels under Gaza. The name Metro is describe it rightly, but we didn't have clear idea about the depths. For example, in some places it is 3 levels of tunnels, big holes in which they put all the munition and headquarters and so on and so forth. So we didn't have the sense of the quality of the tunnels, but we were not surprised by the tunnels themselves. For example, the stories that the IDF intelligence was surprised by the big tunnel near Erez that was ready for transporting even cars. With all due respect, it was known. But in the newspaper, it kind of a surprise. So not all the details were known, not all the details about the combination of what is connecting what, and about the depths of the tunnels and about the quality. But the basic idea that there are tunnels there was known. The problem is that to destroy it, you need huge amount of TNT. I don't think that Israel has enough TNT for that. I'm not sure that in the world there is enough TNT for that. So we will have to do it slowly to find the centers of gravity, to destroy whatever we can, and to do it slowly. So at the end of the year, before the day after, we will succeed to destroy most of the tunnels. Now we are doing it very slowly because we understand that part of the hostages might be in those tunnels. So we have to be very careful.
Okay, let's have one last question as our time is almost up. There was a recent, this is from Erica, there was a recent controversy about a proposed military a military probe report into what happened, and it was seen by some in the government as preempting a future wider-ranging inquiry, which shouldn't be done until after the war. Do you have a view on whether this is a good idea or not?
Yes, I think that we made this clear distinction between two issues.
Okay.
One, the army should yesterday, begin making inquiries to learn the lessons which are needed to do the war better in the future. What mistake had been done? How can we overcome those mistakes? What changes should be done, and so on and so forth. It's a long war during which you have to learn lessons. The other question is about the whole idea of our attitude towards the Hamas before the 7th of October, what we call the conception and other names.
Right.
That, from my point of view, should wait after the war. It will not change the war anyhow. Yeah. It will not help to make the better war, and it will not disturb if we don't know what or the mistake that we did. And as I said personally about myself, huge mistake that I did, evaluating Hamas. But here the truth will not help us to make a better war. So we have to differentiate between what the army should learn, including within the intelligence, about what should be done to make it better in the future, in the close range and in the long range future. And the question of the whole attitude of the state of Israel towards Hamas, was Hamas deterred by Israel or not? What was the motive? What were the motivations of Hamas, and so on and so forth? If we make this differentiation, it will be easier to understand what the army can do and what the army cannot do. From my personal point of view, there are some areas that should not be inquired now, that should wait after the war.
Okay. General Amidror, thank you so much for joining us, for being with us, for giving us so much information in a very short space of time. I think everyone learned much more than in this hour than they would have done by spending many hours reading lots of things. It was very informative and educational for us, and I think answered a lot of the questions that people have, especially those of us who are anxiously reading the news and just getting snippets of information and not necessarily the deep analysis that you were able to provide for us today. So I want to thank you very much for joining us and for doing that for us this evening. I want to thank everyone for joining. I'm sorry I didn't get to everyone's questions. I recommend that everyone go to the website of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. They have a very good English website with a lot of good policy papers and materials written in English, including some written by our guest today. If you are not on my mailing list, then email me, paulg@begincenter.org.il. I've just put up my email address and also the website of GISS. There I will send information about future events in English. There was one question about whether this is being recorded. It is being recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Begin Center and you'll find our channel, and you'll see all of our videos in English, including all 6 of the lectures and discussions that we've had in this series with GISS. So you can do that, and it will also be sent out on my mailing list for those of you on my mailing list. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you again to General Yaakov Amidror, and I wish everyone a good rest of the week, and let's stay safe and pray for the success of the IDF and Israel and the return of our hostages. I'm Israel Chai. Erev Tov. Bye-bye.
Erev Tov. Thank you.